Mind your health.
You got to mind your health.
Mind your health.
Treat yourself. You got to mind your health.
Hello, welcome back to today's episode of Mind Your Health. Dr. Debbie, what are we talking about today?
I love it. We have our dear friend Kelly Edwards here, and we are talking about movement, kind of functional medicine, really, is what we're talking about as it relates to wellness. One of the hidden secrets is that Kelly is a CrossFit trainer. She's in wonderful shape, but you also have a pretty inspirational message for people, and that's about moderation. Anyone can do it, despite your age or physical ability. So we're excited to have you here today.
Yeah, great.
How did you get into the field of really functional movement, and what does that even mean?
So it started for me back when I hit my 30s.
Okay.
And I hit the inability to maintain my lifestyle as it was if I wanted to maintain my health. If that makes sense. I hit that kind of middle age, starting to gain weight, wasn't happy with
Middle-aged 30. I hit 30 years ago.
I'm not even no longer having the metabolism of a teenager.
Exactly.
20-year-old. And, that just sparked the urge in me to make a change and do something about it.
And the interesting part is health has always been a concern of you because you've had some chronic diseases that you've had to work through also. And so maintaining your physical, emotional, and mental health has always been a concern.
Yes. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease about 15 years ago.
Right.
And I've been through 2 surgeries and lots of things to do with that. So it has been a journey, figuring out how all of that kind of goes together and meshes. And it's also been a challenge to keep myself healthy, in addition to, dealing with all of that.
So talk to us about movement. And we use CrossFit because that's specifically what you do. It's not that you're really endorsing CrossFit per se. It's more about the functional movements that it represents. So let's talk to our viewers a little bit about what functional movements really are.
Right. I mean, it's really just about taking the things that you do in everyday life, whether it's the ability to get up out of a chair, get up off the floor, get up out of your bed, that sort of thing. Those are functional movements that we do every single day without thinking about it. But you don't necessarily think about relating that back to exercise or thinking that that's something that's doing your body good when it actually is. And so, it's just kind of taking those basic movements and doing them a little bit more repetitively, turning it into something, that you're challenging your body a little bit. You're getting your body to move. You're getting your body to activate that energy, burn those calories, and
motion is lotion. Gave me an eye roll.
No, I know. I think we've talked about this in previous episodes about the absolute necessity to stretch. And I've been concentrating more on stretching. And you talked about getting up out of bed and getting up off of the floor. And I think the good advice someone told us about just the fact of getting on the floor, stretching out on that floor and then getting up is so important. And I can feel it. I'm pretty good health, but it feels so much better when I'm stretched out on that floor, relaxed, and then, do some floor exercises and then get up and either start my day or go on with what I was doing.
What are your recommendations for functional movements that novices can do? What do you like to see people doing?
I mean, you can do a lot with just your body weight, whether that be squatting.
Okay.
Or maybe not so much as push-ups, but, lifting something, whether it be just as simple as a jug of milk or, something like that, that lifting, that adding that strain to that muscle. I mean, it's things, like I said, it's things that we do every single day. When you go get groceries, what do? You pull them into the house. You're lifting that, you're taking them in. So taking things like that and, turn it into
exercise.
Yeah, exercise.
Do you feel like people are intimidated by the thought of moving when they're not used to it. We've done talks together, and it's really we've had a lot of fun doing it together also. But I think the takeaway message has always been fear. I'm afraid. And the reason I always qualify when we're talking about CrossFit is because people will be like, "Oh, I don't think I can do that."
Right. The general perception of CrossFit is that, oh, I could never do that. When the reality of the sport is anybody can actually do it. If you were to ever take the step, go in, see what it's actually about, then you would realize that there is a way to take any movement that might be written or, prescribed, as we like to call it, for you on the board for that day. It can be modified for any individual to do some form of that movement or set of movements that is there for you that day.
Oh, it's so much fun.
I'm afraid.
No,
No, where I thought you were going to say was, I can't. So the lesson I got is, it's not so much you can't, it's what can you do?
correct.
Because I know people that, that have trouble ambulating. They cannot get on the floor. But there are chair exercises. There are things that
That's
you
exactly.
can do instead of, I can't.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, I can't do
Right. For some people, the goal would be to sit in the chair, and our end goal is going to be to get up out of that chair
That's right.
without bracing ourselves.
That's right.
Right.
I failed that exercise too. Yeah, I understand that. But I also am better than I was.
Right.
So
Exactly.
Right.
That's
And
the
that's what
point.
it's all about. It's all about making little improvements. And that doesn't have to be, massive, heavy lifting and all of that stuff. It might can just be the ability to squat below.
Exactly. Well, going to CrossFit for me, I walk in, and it was, I've told you this story a million times. It was 5:00 in the morning, CrossFit. No, believe me, I brought the median age down by like 52 years. I was the only woman. They were all servers who had come off of the night shift. So they were either still in their cups or just having a grand old time, but they were big, buff builders. And they hand me a PVC pipe that was like 1 pound. And they were like, okay, so we all lined up to do our squats and our lifts. And I'm like, delicately lifting my PVC pipe up, and they're like rooting me on. It was amazing. So it really is something for everyone.
Yes, it is. And I am not the one coining this term. It is kind of one of those general terms in the sport of CrossFit, but is infinitely scalable.
Correct.
Meaning you can take something and put it at absolutely any level for anybody out there.
That's right. How do you recommend, is CrossFit a place that you do recommend people to go for functional movement?
Absolutely. I personally think that it's a great form of exercise because of the ability to modify everything and make it, so that anybody can do it. That type of environment, there's always a coach, there's always a certified coach that's in class. So you will have somebody to go to that can help guide you if you're brand new. Obviously there are always multiple levels of everything throughout the class. So, you never know what you're going to walk into, but there will always be guaranteed someone there that can help you and get you through, that first experience.
because that's what I was thinking about when you were talking about lifting the weights. You always have to be careful and be taught how to lift.
Right.
If you lift the wrong way, especially if you're an older or more experienced person.
Yes.
You can hurt yourself. If you need to lift with your legs, I mean, there's a whole process. You keep your back straight, all that kind of stuff. So,
Right. What is it? And any gym is fine, but there's different experiences, there's different gyms, right? So, if you were to go to like a Planet Fitness or that sort of thing, you're just on your own, right? And you're just trying to figure it out and maybe not really knowing what to do. But this type of environment gives you programming and, purpose and somebody that is there.
What does a coach really do? What does a CrossFit coach do? What are they going to do for David and I?
So we're there to make that experience right the most optimal for you. So we are there to gauge what we have. If we have a class of 10 people and all different abilities, then it's assessing. We use the warm up to assess what we have, right? So it's always a very simple warm up as compared to anything else. So you can see who could squat, who can't squat. What do we have today? Where do we need to move so that you can take what is going on because you know what's coming. It's, you're prepared for what's going to be there. And you can kind of get an idea of, okay, with this person, we're going to need to do this. And then as we progress through what's programmed for the day, you're able to guide that person. Okay, let's try this. Let's see how this goes. And, you're able to kind of make do, for everybody in the class.
It's probably also been experience community building too, because that seems to be kind of thematic with what we're talking about today.
I don't know if I want a community at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Well, no, that was
I have a community at 2.
right. It was fun, but
it's very inconsistent at 5 a.m. So
I don't know. Those
sometimes it's 1 or 2. Sometimes there's like 8 or 10, or sometimes.
Can you briefly talk about? So I don't want to get too personal, but Crohn's is an anatomic disease. How has your exercise and CrossFit helped with an anatomical disease?
So it has helped. It's twofold, because I'm not going to say that it has absolutely, cured me or anything like that. But mentally, it keeps me there. So while the exercise itself doesn't keep my body from going in and out of flares or problems or anything like that, it helps me on the physical end to recover from a flare or to have that community aspect that I love so much about the gym, to help, build me up and
it helps with your mindset.
Right. Get you in that mindset to where
helps remind you,
right, you can do it. There we go.
That's what circle should be. Yeah. But that's exactly what it does. How often do you recommend people actually take time to move? And I hesitate using exercise because you say all the time exercise doesn't necessarily have to. No, it's the other way around. Movement doesn't necessarily have to be exercise. It can simply be putting your body into motion.
Right. I do believe that the recommendation for our physical health is 30 minutes of some form of actual exercise 3 to 4 times a week.
Okay.
I believe is that kind of minimum requirement.
Well, and what's interesting about exercise is talking about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, some of the other neurodivergent kinds of things that we see in kids. And one of the biggest ways to offset that is exercise or movement. If we can, bilateral stimulation, if we can get people out there using both sides of their brain, they're going to feel better. And that's just the way it is. So there is a huge component of that. Any takeaways for our audience today?
I always like to encourage people to do something. Of course, I love the sport that I do and I'm certified in, and it's proven so many benefits for me and my body and my overall health. But that is not the end all be all, and I do recognize that. But I just like to be a proponent for people to take charge of their health and do something for their body to keep them moving, because that's what's going to keep us healthy.
Yeah.
Woo! On that note, that is a wonderful way to end this. And thank you, Kelly. Thank you all for joining us here on Mind Your Health.
Mind your health, mind your health, mind your health, mind your health.